This is my Odyssey, visiting the birthplaces of the U.S. presidents with pictures and fun facts. I'm Bob Henderson. The 23rd President of the United States was Benjamin Harrison. One term, 1889 to 93. Harrison was the fourth of 7 presidents born in Ohio. He was born west of Cincinnati in North Bend, Ohio, where his grandfather, the 9th President, William Henry Harrison, is buried. The two Harrisons are the only grandfather-grandson tandem in U.S. history to become president. Harrison's great-grandfather and namesake was one of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Harrison was born on this street, then farmland, at what is today the corner of Washington and Simms. He lived most of his life in Indiana, where he's buried. Benjamin Harrison lost his rematch with the former President Grover Cleveland in 1892. And Grover Cleveland would go on to be the only president to serve non-consecutive terms, as he became the 24th president. The 25th president was William McKinley, Jr., 1897 to 1901, the 5th of 7 presidents born in Ohio. McKinley was born at 40 North Main Street in Niles, Ohio. He was elected to 2 terms, but early in his second term, he became the 3rd president to be assassinated. In September of 1901, he was at an exposition in Buffalo, and he was shot by an anarchist named Leon Czolgosz. McKinley survived his wounds for several days and then died. Many think that with today's modern medicine, McKinley would have survived. His vice president became the 26th president. And the 26th president was Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., president 1901 to 1909. Teddy Roosevelt, as he was known, was the 3rd of 5 presidents born in New York State. And by the way, he was the youngest man to ever become president, although not the youngest to be elected. That would come later. Teddy was born in New York City at 28 East 20th Street in the Flatiron District between Broadway and Park Avenue. The home where he was born was at his birth well-to-do, and it still is today. Here's what surrounds the birthplace today. And by the way, the birthplace is a replica. Fun fact, TR would win election on his own in 1904, sit out in 1908, and come back as a third-party candidate in 1912, but more on that later. The 27th president was William Howard Taft, the 6th of 7 presidents born in Ohio. Taft was born in the prestigious Mount Auburn area, high above downtown Cincinnati. And a fun fact, Taft was one of 5 presidents to graduate Yale University. This includes the law school graduates. And in case you're wondering, the school with the most presidential grads is Harvard, with 8. Taft was from a well-known family that would become a political dynasty in Ohio. Many buildings and schools named after Taft. My elementary school in Ohio was Taft Elementary. Fun fact number 2, William Howard Taft was the only president to also be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. This would happen about 10 years after his presidency. He lost his re-election bid in a 3-way contest to former president and good friend Teddy Roosevelt and to the man who would become the 28th president. The 28th president was Thomas Woodrow Wilson, known as Woodrow Wilson, 2 terms, 1913 to 21. Wilson, believe it or not, was the 8th of 8 presidents born in Virginia. Many think New Jersey would be the site of his birth. After all, he was the governor of New Jersey. Before that, he was the president of Princeton University in New Jersey. But Wilson was born in the small town of Stanton, Virginia. It's spelled S-T-A-U-N-T-O-N, could be Staunton, but it's pronounced Stanton. And he was born at 20 Coulter Street in Stanton. The presidential library is right next to his birthplace home. Now, Wilson won his first term in 1912 against the former president, Teddy Roosevelt, and the sitting president, William Howard Taft. Roosevelt was running on a third-party ticket, the Bull Moose Party. That was a progressive party. Fun fact, Stanton, Virginia, where Wilson was born, is the home of country music's The Oak Ridge Boy. And fun fact number 2, Woodrow Wilson's the only president with a PhD. The 29th president, Warren Gamaliel Harding, president 1921 to 23, the 7th of 7 presidents born in Ohio. Harding was born in Blooming Grove, Ohio, an unincorporated area at State Route 97 and County Road 20 in Morrow County. Harding spent most of his life as a newspaper owner in nearby Marion, Ohio, where he would run a front porch campaign for president in 1920 against fellow Ohioan James Cox. And by the way, Cox's running mate would later become one of the most famous U.S. presidents. Here's a fun fact. The presidential election of 1920 was the first election where the results were reported on a new media platform, radio, and specifically the nation's first radio station, KDKA Pittsburgh. Harding was considered one of the most handsome presidents. Sadly, would become the third of 4 presidents to die in office of natural causes. He died while on a Western trip in San Francisco, and his vice president became the 30th president. The 30th president was John Calvin Coolidge, Jr., known as Calvin Coolidge, president 1923 to 29. Coolidge was the second of 2 presidents born in Vermont. He was born in Plymouth Notch, Vermont, on Vermont Route 100A in the Green Mountains. And a notch is defined as rugged and marked by steep cliffs on both sides. And I definitely saw that on my way up to the Coolidge birthplace. Now, although Coolidge spent most of his adult life in Massachusetts as a legislator and the governor of Massachusetts, he was inaugurated at the Vermont home, and he's buried on the property as well. Coolidge, known as Silent Cal, as he was a man of few words, was once reportedly encountered by a woman who said, "Mr. President, I'll bet I can get you to say more than 2 words." To which Coolidge replied, "You lose." My kind of dry humor. The 31st president was Herbert Clark Hoover. One term, 1929 to 33. Hoover, the only president born in Iowa. And he's the first president born west of the Mississippi River. He was born in West Branch, Iowa, in a Quaker community at what is today 110 Parkside Drive. The Quaker meeting house is on the property where Hoover was born. His parents both died young, and Hoover was sent to live with his uncle in Oregon. And by the way, the presidential library is at the Birthplace site, and Hoover's buried there too. He was a one-term president because he presided over the beginning of the Great Depression and was soundly defeated for re-election in 1932. Fun fact, Hoover enrolled at Stanford in California, and he was a member of the first graduating class of 1895. He majored in geology, and he used that to become a very successful mining engineer. And later at Stanford, Hoover would found the Hoover Institution, which still exists today as a leading think tank. Fun fact number 2. The Boulder Dam in Nevada was started during Hoover's presidency, and today it's known as Hoover Dam, named in his honor. My visits to the birthplaces of the U.S. presidents continues with the birthplace of the 32nd president in the next episode.